There's always this terrifying moment at the beginning of every video where I almost start and then realize my mic is off and not yet set to record. And trust me, there's only so many times you want to talk through 45 minutes of Kickstarter videos with Kickstarter games without a mic before you realize you have to redo it, and it's just not a fun thing to do. Hi, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. And if you're new here, well, I'm covering Kickstarters, and today is going to be the Monday Weekly Roundup. And we're going to go through three phases here. We're going to go through cancellations, which there are actually a few this week. Usually there's actually not that many or none at all. This week we have three or two because one was relaunched. A bunch of things that aren't funding, which I usually go through in much less detail, or either not funding or literally just funded. Those I go through in much less detail, at least for right now, and then I possibly revisit as they fund. And then the rest of the video is going to be all the Kickstarter projects, some of them updates from weeks I've covered in the past, others brand new because we had an absolute host of things drop on the 23rd, to the point that I'm not covering everything this week. I saved some things for next week just because there's too many to cover, and I would like to keep this video to under an hour, ideally speaking. And so, to begin it off, let's talk about Bamboo Bash. So, Bamboo Bash is going to be a cancellation. We will not talk about it extensively now. This is going to be from Mayday Games, or Imperial Publishing, which is like kind of a offshoot or subsidiary. I'm not entirely sure the relationship, but Imperial Publishing is basically Mayday Games. Mayday Games made TikTok Woodman. Bamboo Bash is not TikTok Woodman. We will talk about that more when they actually relaunch the Kickstarter. For right now, they canceled. They're coming back, potentially with stretch goals, changes, who knows. I don't know exactly what they're doing, but they do plan on coming back with this one. From there we have Bloodstone. Bloodstone is Bloodstone is from Skybound Games. It's going to be Druid City Games, Skybound Games, and they were doing tremendously well-ish is a relative term, but they hit $300,000, and I'm not going to overly talk about this right now. Rather, if you wait around until the end of the video, we'll save this for the topic of conversation. And so, but Bloodstone canceled. They are coming back in the summer. Let's talk about it more a bit later. From there, we get to Union City Alliance, which is the one that canceled and relaunched, and is still having some trouble funding. And Union City Alliance is going to be one that I think the combination of price point plus a lack of a clear message of setting it apart from other superhero games. What is special about this game? What makes it a game worth pursuing? In fact, the only reason I'm paying attention to it at all is frankly from the One Stop Co-op Shop, where in a hobby where we are seeing more and more superhero themed games, Union City Alliance stands out. The unique take on deck building Evolving City combined to making a fantastic experience that I can't wait to play again. This quote specifically does tell me that, at least in his opinion, it does stand out. And so I'd recommend watching One Stop Co-op Shop's video in terms of checking out whether it's a game that resonates for you or not. But overall, it's coming in at a price point, an accessibility price point of $75 for the entry-level pledge level. And we're not going to go into the should you back it, should you not in this video because it's not even funding yet. But it's $75 for the entry point to get into another superhero game with okay art, but nothing that's particularly standing out, no IP behind it. This is a game that's begging the question of why should I pay attention to you? It's hard. It's nothing against them. It's hard. I mean, even the Sailor Brothers, even Blacklist Games, Blacklist Games. I'm blanking on the name. Whatever it is, even them when they had their Heroes United or Heroes of. They had their hero game that I can't remember the name of right now, but that game as well also struggled to do well, and even though that's coming from an established company, it seems like superhero games are a hard sell unless you have the IP behind it. The main notable exception will be Sentinels of the Multiverse, that has been around since 2012, so it does have a bit of a leg up in that sense. But overall, if you're interested in Union City Alliance, check it out, check some videos, see if it's for you. It may or may not fund. 26 days to go, but also if you don't hit half your funding in the first few days, it is a problem. It is a flag against the Kickstarter, and it's going to take time to see whether this one actually funds or not. From there, we have Finding Anastasia, which is also not funding. We have like 5 that are not funding right now. Finding Anastasia is going to be a lightweight deduction game, family weight, lightweight deduction game, similar to Cloaked Cats, which I did a review with my daughter with Ricky, similar to Grim Masquerade from Druid City Games as well, from Skybound Games. It's going to be lightweight deduction. So you're going to have, it's the theme is Anastasia, who's trying to hide, and you want to ensure that Anastasia is discovered by the right person. Every character comes to the table with their own objective that's listed on the character, and you're going to be slowly deducing which one's which by process of elimination, getting various objects or whatnot. It's a lightweight family deduction game that is, well, check it out if you like either Cloaked Cats, if you liked Grim Masquerade, or if the idea of lightweight social deduction appeals to you. The art looks great. Price point's okay, not great. I imagine this is one, I'm not really going to show you back it, but price point wise, it's the biggest reason this might be worth backing would come down to whether it will show up at retail or not. Otherwise, the pricing now versus retail versus what you get doesn't seem to be that much worth it. Moving on, we have Candy Wars. Candy Wars, which I would have thought this would be funding already. This is from 4Fun Games, which is a sister company to CGS, which I can never, Creative Game Studio, that's what CGS stands for. I always get confused between CGE, Czech Games Edition, and CGS, even though they're different initials, but I always get thrown off when I'm trying to say it. But Creative Game Studios, who brought you Chronicles of Drunagar, which I backed and I'm super excited about, they have a sister company, 4Fun, that they're coming out with Candy Wars. Candy Wars overall is meant to be appealing to an Arcadia Quest style audience, is meant to be gateway but also family friendly at the same time, or I should say gamer, but family-friendly gamer, similar to Arcadia Quest. That's their target audience. I assume they're struggling likely because the art design really does scream to a younger demographic. It's a little bit too candy-ish. I assume that that's the challenge here. I mean, ultimately, it's not funding. 215 backers. It's currently not funding. It does not look like that will change. I don't know exactly. I mean, comment down below if you've seen this game and why you are or are not backing. Is it the gameplay? Is it the theme? Is it the miniatures? What is it about this game that's not pulling you in? For myself, honestly, I wouldn't have paid attention to it, except I know that it's from Creative Game Studio, or at least the sister company, and that is enough of a reason for me to be paying attention to it. I myself am not currently backing it because I don't think that myself, first of all, I don't like Arcadia Quest, which is a big flag already. If it's aiming to be in the vein of Arcadia Quest, I don't like PvP, PvE, I don't like that style. I mean, Bloodstone, which people are clamoring for, we want PvP versus PvE, and I'm like, no, I like PvP, I like PvE, I do not like the mix. Never the two shall meet, or whatnot. But either way, Candy Wars, not funding just yet. Then we have Dawn on Titan. This is going to be by Aeon Game Design, who generally make a lot of heavier games. Dawn on Titan is going to be one of their lighter games. Do not think for a second that necessarily means it's light. It just means Aeon Game Design does very heavy games, and Dawn on Titan is going to be lighter compared to the offerings they usually bring to the table. This is going to be a space 4x, 5x style game with a whole bunch of abilities, races. I don't know a lot about the game, and I'm not going heavily into it because of the fact that it's not funding yet. But overall, I mean, the art looks great. The general feel of the game very much makes me think of the game that's coming from Last Light, coming from Roy Canada, which I had the opportunity to play that one. Although this one it's obviously different, but it just looks on a higher level of a 4X game with this particular board over here that does look reminiscent. It does look like they share similarities, but that's surface level similarities, not actual gameplay similarities. But check out this one, see if you're interested. A lighter game from Aeon Game Designs, which doesn't mean a lighter game. Moving on, we have Skyline Express, which I think is the last of... Nope, we'll see. Skyline Express. Skyline Express is going to come to the table from I can't remember the name, from Destroy Games, who they brought you Micro City and a few others. In fact, they have a little thing over here. They brought you Pocket Mars, Alchemist, Micro City, and something Quest over here, which I don't know this one offhand. And Skyline Express looks like it's bringing to you... Well, it's bringing you a few things. First of all, it's bringing to the table a roll and write game along with the actual game. So you have a tile/puzzly navigation game. You have this train that you're trying to fill up with various people, and you have to get the people from the central board, and then have those people be arranged to fit certain goals, and then use abilities to rearrange them. You get other goals so you can cross off, different configurations. It's one of those games where you're trying to make different sequences work together. It's a puzzly experience combined with the central area where you're trying to get everything from. In addition to that, they also have an expansion. They have the Bags and Belongings expansion, and then they have the roll and write experience as well, which you can back separately if you want that. Overall, again, I am confused why this one is not funding. This one visually looks delightful. I mean, the art looks great. The graphic design looks amazing. It's coming from an established company who has brought games to the table, and yet only 290 backers. I'm curious what the reason is. Is it a lack? Did you just not hear of this game? Because, I mean, I know I barely heard of this game. This was definitely lower on my radar. In terms of all the places I get games when I'm doing these lists, this was on, like, my last list of not the common stuff, but eventually something shows up somewhere list, which is not an actual list, but either way. But Skyline Express, yeah, overall, it's a family-friendly tile laying and pattern building game. Looks intriguing. I am curious why you are or are not funding this one as well, just because it looks pretty, and pretty games usually do well on Kickstarter, whether or not they're good. From there, we have Wutaki, which is almost funding, and again, we'll talk about this in a future week in terms of should you back it, should you not, whether it makes sense or all that, but it's not funding yet, so we're not going to get into that. I don't do a heavy deep dive on value just yet. But Wutaki is bringing you a interactive worker placement that's supposed to be a cutthroat game. I don't know a lot about the actual sequences here that make the game cutthroat. I don't know what it is about the game that's making it so intense in terms of what they're trying to sell it to you as. But overall, it does seem to be a worker placement game, which, I mean, you have spaces where you put people, therefore it's a worker placement game, obviously. The actual video is adorable. I mean, you should watch the video up here. The video for this game over here is really well done. Kind of makes me more interested in the actual game itself, but the video does sell me on the game. But overall, this is Wutaki. It looks interesting. interesting. I'm not currently backing it, not currently overall paying attention to it, because I don't know what it is about that stands out about the game to pull me in. But overall, if you're interested in this game, or if you just want to be exposed to it, this is Wutaki, and I'll talk about it more if or when it is funding. From there, we're going to get to 2 updates. So we have Kingdom Rush Elemental Uprising. So with 4 days left and $600,000, this one may or may not cross that $1 million mark. I don't think it will. I really don't. I mean, 4 days with 600,000, that would be a lot of stuff to pull off. But I think it may well hit 800,000, which for a follow-up expansion, a standalone, not really expansion, a standalone game that came out right after the first one, when they already tapped out a big part of the market, that is pretty impressive. So, I mean, overall, I would consider this a win for them. I know that if you watched Chit Chat with Meeple, with Man vs. Meeple. Chit Chat with Man vs. Meeple. I know Ryan Shun, who works for GameFound, he said on there, said publicly, so otherwise I wouldn't say anything, he said he's not going into what they did or didn't expect, but he does know that they already surpassed what they were hoping to necessarily hit. They had a threshold of what they wanted to hit, of what Lucky Duck wanted to hit, and they've already surpassed that number, which is good. It's awesome, because, again, it's an expansion standalone. I mean, again, standalone, but combinable standalone, but nonetheless, those are always a harder pitch, and when you launch it on a new platform, there's always a risk. Am I going to get that hype and that buzz of, look, we're the next hot thing on GameFound? Or do you lose out on the Kickstarter audience? It's hard to really know, and so I'm happy for Lucky Duck that they hit that. As far as where we are right now, they've they've unlocked all the all-in pledges, so let's go ahead and take a look at that. We have over here, if we go to the reward section, so, we have the Elements Horde pledge, which doesn't look as pretty. Maybe I should find where's the pretty stuff. There's a pretty way of looking at these pledges, if I can find them, because they were much, much prettier when you look at them all. Give me a second here. Okay, so I'm just going to scroll rapidly through the page, trying not to give you a stroke, but where was this? Oh, here we go. So, here we go. For the Elements Horde pledge for $115, giving you 10% off buying these individually. So, if you want to buy them individually on the Kickstarter versus you buy them all together, it's 10% off. That's $115 versus $127. That's what you're getting. You're going to get the giant box over here. You're going to get that cool big box, which I do recommend. All in all, if I had to recommend one thing over here, regardless of which pledge you get one of them with the big cool box that lets you pull things out more easily. Making the game accessible is far more important than getting 2 copies of similar yet different games. So my one recommendation would be get the one of these boxes no matter which pledge you get. Past that, you get the base game, and it's going to be it's not going to be the same box. You're going to get either this box or the rest. So all of them are going to be combined for you. So you don't expect that you're getting separate boxes with whatever. You're getting one or the other. In terms of the content, you're getting the base game. You're getting Dark Elf Slayer. You're getting the Gnomish Nonsense expansion, which looks hilarious. You're going to be getting this giant box, which is a $27 buy on its own. So if you don't care about the box, you'll save $27 less 10%. Or actually, that is with 10%. So you'll save $27 if you don't want the box. But again, I recommend the box. It will make the gameplay more accessible, and that's key. Getting games to the table is important. And then, of course, it's going to give you the More Than Shadows expansion. So it's giving you all that for $115, obviously, plus shipping. Past that, you have the Kingdom Pledge, which is going to give you everything. So for $257, you can get basically both boxes with both their upgradable everything. So I mean, it's a lot of content. I said this last week, you do not need this much content. Am I getting this much content? Yes, I am. I like Kingdom Rush a lot. If you are new to Kingdom Rush, don't spend $257 on Kingdom Rush. Again, I like this game, but you will be just fine with getting one full system on its own. And if I were recommending one full system just on price alone, I would recommend the newest system of Elemental Uprising. So that's my overall recommendation here. But again, if you like Kingdom Rush, or if you just have poor impulse control like I do, then ignore everything I'm saying and go ahead and spend $257 on a whole bunch of polyominoes marching towards your castle. And then that's going to give you the base game and all the expansions as well, basically giving you everything from the original and new Kickstarter all combined. You're going to be getting all of that all combined, although I have to double check. There are some things you may not get. So I have to double check in terms of the optional buys. Let me just double check the optional buys. The optional buys, was there anything you don't get? I don't know if it came with the tower upgrades. Let me just double check this. So if we scroll up here, I do not believe you get the tower upgrades on its own here. You have to buy those separately. So factor that in. In both these pledge levels, you do have to buy the tower upgrade separately. Do not think of them as an all-in. So those are something you want to pay attention to, and I do recommend getting those tower upgrades. They really do add a lot of value to the experience, making it more tactile, making you more immersed, and also just easier to manage the various towers you're placing down on locations. That's overall Kingdom Rush. As far as value, I talked about it last week. Short version is it holds its value, but also not a great value. Overall, Kingdom Rush, the first pledge, did fine. People were able to sell it and get their money back. feedback, but it wasn't breaking banks. It was a game that definitely had an appeal, definitely had people who wanted it in, but was not like, oh my gosh, this game has to sell for 2.5 times its value. Nothing like that. Seems to hold its value, and that's about it. Moving on from there, we have Zombicide. Speaking of things that will hold their value, Zombicide will absolutely hold its value because CMON has some sort of magic sauce that they sprinkle on all their campaigns, and they sell for 2 times what you pledged for them or whatever. CMON Undead or Alive. So this is bringing you a ton of content for the Wild West, basically, Undead or Alive. I talked about it last week. This week I'm just going through the updates. I will likely be doing a full dedicated video on Undead or Alive within like the last 3 days before the campaign. If history is anything to go by, I'll probably put out the video, and then like an hour later they'll be like, and here's your optional buy for all in everything, because they like to wait until after I do my final video before finally giving us that information. Aside from that, I'm just going to briefly focus on 3 things that I think are, well, noteworthy. One is, again, historically speaking, I put out my video last week on Monday, and then that Monday they dropped their Gears and Guns Steampunk expansion. And if you thought that I was in this before, I am so much more in now. I mean, it's steampunk. I don't even care about Wild West when it comes to steampunk. It's just steampunk. Feast your eyes on just steampunk miniatures and steampunk abominations and steam mechanics, which are basically going to be similar to the mechanics they had in the 2nd edition of like overusing a weapon effectively. And so they're tying that to steampunk, which thematically makes sense. But you have these like more powerful weapons that you can kind of break or expend. I like that. We have more 6 double-sided tiles. That's just more tile variability. Yes, you could buy the tile pack. They have a new optional buy for buying a tile pack. You can always get those. For myself, I don't actually get those. I find that I have too much Zombicide already, that I'm not really making my own scenarios. I just use whatever they give me, and they don't really give me scenarios for utilizing that. Honestly, come on, if you want to sell more tile packs, you should come up with scenarios that utilize those extra tiles, those doubled up tiles. That's something people I think would buy more. But the Steampunk pledge is going to be $140, so it's an extra $40 compared to your base pledge, and it gives you the Zombicide Gears and Guns expansion, as well as giving you access to specific stretch goals that are exclusively tied to that expansion. So don't just think about it as, well, it's just a retail. There are stretch goals tied to this expansion specifically. Make sure to factor that in, because otherwise I would say just wait till retail on this expansion, because I've said that in the past. Past that, it's going to give you a bit of a miniature campaign as well. So if you wanted a campaign, Zombicide 2nd Edition gave you a campaign, so is Gears and Guns. And then past that, we just have, some weapons and things. I mean, look at this weapon. It's a cool looking weapon. Do I care about the stats? Not at all. I just care about the cool looking weapon. And these goggles, and these dice, the steampunk dice, and these steampunk dice are not wood, which is interesting. So they're not wood dice. And we have a new class, an engineer class, that once per activation can spend an action to deplete a steam weapon and refill another steam weapon. So it has a bit of a juggling and managing of the steam weapon stuff going on. Then we have this aspect of steam valves that like steam will be propulsing. That's not the right word. Steam will be ejecting or shooting across the board, making it harder to navigate, different things like that. The big giant abomination knocks off these steam vents, so that's always fun. And then that is basically all the stuff going on, scrolling past all these miniatures, which I may or may not do when I do my full video in the last few days of the campaign. Next up, we have the many faces of the Great Trickster Spirit. So the $1.5 million reveal stretch goal, whatever, is going to be the Great Trickster Spirit, which looks pretty cool. And it looks pretty cool because, first of all, the size is deceiving. You might think this is not big. It's big. I'll show you in a second. And 2 is that head. That head comes off. So we have different heads, 3 different heads that will go on the Great Trickster Spirit, giving it different abilities. And look at that. Look at that compared to a tiny little miniature. Look how cute and adorable that cowboy is as he tries to shoot bullets into the giant Great Trickster Spirit with the scary rabbit head. That is not something fun for anyone involved. Actually, it's hilariously fun for everyone involved, except for the cowboy who's probably about to die. But that is his problem, not mine. And then lastly, we have the Mess with the Bull, You Get the Horns, the Deadstock Abomination Pack, which is a $25 optional buy, giving you 4 more abominations. That's $6 per mini. Is it worth it from sheer plastic alone? I mean, no, they're expensive miniatures for quality that's good but not amazing. Is it worth it for the gameplay content you'll get out of 4 extra abominations that are specifically 1 bear and 3 bull themed? I mean, yeah, I'm all in on this. It's gonna be similar to they had a miniature abomination expansion pack in Zombicide 2nd Edition again, so they're basically hitting all the same notes as 2nd Edition, which is fine for me because I like more Zombicide in general, and if I don't like it, I'll turn around and sell it and get all my money back, so I have no concern whatsoever, unless of course I do what I do with Invader, which is I keep it on my shelf, don't play it because I prefer Black Plague, keep telling myself I need to get rid of it, but don't get rid of it because I want to give it more plays, but don't actually give it more plays, and it is an expensive paperweight on my shelves, but hey, my kids get to play with it, and they do like the miniatures, so it's not entirely going to waste. Moving on from there, let's take a bit of a coffee break. And I saw a comment a video or two ago about how I'm getting addicted to coffee. I've had 2 cups of coffee a day, every single day, morning and afternoon, for like 10 years now. I've not been drinking more coffee. I've just been drinking more coffee in front of you. Although I am getting less sleep. YouTube is having an effect on my life. Less sleep is a thing, but not more coffee. Moving on to Orconomics 2nd edition. You're like my therapist. All you are like my miniature therapist. I get to tell you my problems, and they all get solved. It's pretty simple. I like it. Good relationship. Good talk. Let's move on to Orconomics before I continue to talk about my coffee and my lack of sleep issues. So, Orconomics 2nd edition is going to be by Ares Games. This is a game that is doing well-ish, but not really well, which is a problem because I want more content for this game. I want basically tons of more Orconomic factories, companies, that's the word. I want more companies in this game so that to introduce more variability to the gameplay. Because Orconomics is going to be a game that is similar to Machi Koro, to Valeria Card Kingdoms, to Space Base, to Catan. It's going to have the basic idea of people building up an investment into a spot where you roll dice, and rolling dice triggers investment and payout on those things you invested in. Rinse, repeat, build up more stuff until eventually somebody wins. It has that basic economy going on. Now the implementation here is very different, for better and for worse. I will get into that with my playthrough and review. I'll be doing a playthrough and review with my wife, with Rena, so we'll have a video up probably Saturday. We'll see. It might be earlier, might be later, but probably Saturday, which means not a lot of time left in the campaign. But overall, I did the short version I'll tell you right now is I do like this game. I do want to add it to my collection, which is why I want all of you to go back it so we can get more stuff, because I don't actually know if they're doing stretch goals or just daily on the wheels. They're doing stretch goals. They have financial stretch goals. But that's overall a bit of a tangent to the fact that Orconomics. So like I said already, it's an economic game combining orcs. The humor is great, including the campaign, by the way. All the updates, if you are bored, read through the updates. They are great. They do a great job of being very humorous in the whole entire campaign, from the campaign page to the GIFs to the updates to everything, and the rulebook as well. Rulebook is all the whole thing's just generally amusing. But overall, like I said, it's basically going to have that aspect of build up in companies. The Kickstarter version of the game is going to come, the premium edition only, is going to come with these little companies, which are significantly better than the cardboard tokens you would otherwise get. If you are interested in this game personally, I recommend getting the Kickstarter version, because you probably are paying about $10-15 more than you will be able to than you need to compared to getting it at retail, if it makes its way to retail. But you will get cooler deluxeified pieces plus stretch goals and optional unlocks, and I think they are worth it for yourself. Will it hold its value? I don't think so. I don't think there's enough demand here for the game that this is one that you'll be able to get your $50 plus shipping back on. I think you'll probably be able to get your $50 back on. You'll almost certainly lose your shipping, and you may even take a $5-10 hit. So overall, if you are interested in this game, I think it's worth getting it. If you are interested in this game and you want to be able to sell it if it's not a game for you, well, I don't think that will happen. The good news, meaning I think you'll get a decent chunk of it back, but I think you will lose something. It's just there's not enough demand for this game. It's nice, it's good, it's also not amazing. This is not a blockbuster hit that's going to be knocking everyone's socks off. This is a reprint of an original edition of the game called Orconomics First Edition, which immediately means they're fighting an uphill battle, because it wasn't a popular enough game that they're capitalizing on the IP or the name or whatever. Rather, they're streamlining and tweaking an older game, ideally adding improvements, but now they need to sell people on the reasons why they should back a game that is a second edition of a first game that they've never heard of, which is a whole different conversation. Again, I like the game. I'm just explaining the my own perception or opinion as to why it's not doing amazingly well. The art, by the way, is great. The gameplay is solid. It's not knocking anyone's socks off. I don't know why I keep using that expression, but it is in the Valeria Card Kingdom style of a fun game where you get to build things up, get abilities, all that stuff, and just have fun doing abilities and messing with each other, and eventually getting your to 11 points first, at which point you win. Stay tuned for that playthrough and review. Past that, we have a few other things. We have the Orconomics Dice Tray for $8. We have the metal coins for $19. The game, and by the way, those metal coins, those skulls, they're cool. And if you want metal skulls for this game or others, that's a fun opportunity to get your hands on some of those. And then past that, they have a bunch of unlock goals slowly happening. So far, they only have one additional company, which is a shame, because I want tons of extra companies to mix up the experience, because the experience will be variable every time, both because of the fact that you have different quests that'll be coming out, as well as the configuration of the tiles. But the configuration is not as much variability as I would like. I want like a good 5 more companies so you can mix things in or out. It could arguably be a slight pain in terms of having to shuffle the deck and take out the right cards, but past that, I still want that stuff. If you are interested in this game and you are not sure, make sure to check it out on Tabletopia, because it is available on Tabletopia for you to try it out and you can see if it's a game for you. Moving on, we have Chamber of Wonders, another game I had the opportunity to try. This one I already put up a review, so Chamber of Wonders overall falls in the same category. Quick overall notes, which is a different game, totally different game, but it falls in the same category of a solid game, one that I'm adding to my collection, but also not one that I think is knocking, I gotta stop saying knocking people's socks off. Chamber of Wonders is a light set collection game that plays in around 20 minutes, and that is my main appeal of it. It is a game that gives you enough meaningful choice and enough variability and powers and all things that will mix up the experience that for a 20-minute game, I am completely in on it. If it were a 40-minute game, I would just play other games instead. But for a 20-minute experience, I think it's a very solid game, gives you a decent amount of choice and a lot of variability. So you can have all these buildings over here. Ultimately, you're trying to collect different sets of goods with each have their own different rule of set collection. So some come in sets, some you just place down by themselves, but they have abilities in them. Some will give you coins, some will, compete with other players for uniqueness or different things like that. But overall, throughout the game, throughout the 8 or 9 rounds of the game, depending on the player count, you will basically be collecting various goods, putting them out into slots, and trying to earn the most points through being the most efficient or ideal at the way you collect sets of stuff. It is fun. My biggest complaint against it is it has a very high production value in terms of having to pull extra things out of the box to set it up for what is a 20-minute game. So I kind of feel that's a little bit of an interesting dichotomy there, but if they do it well enough, if the components are well designed and come out of the box quickly, then I'm fine with it. So it ultimately comes down to that final product, how that's done. But the variability in this game is going to come from you're going to have a ton of different buildings. Each of these buildings is double-sided, and currently, I believe there's currently 6. It might be 7. There's currently, so whatever it is, 6, let's call it 6 just in case. Then there's 6 double-sided buildings, which means 12 different abilities, of which you're only using 4 per game. So that mixes up the experience every single time. Additionally, you have these agents in between spots that will be different as well, giving you again a different experience, a different puzzle every single time in terms of what you get over there. Additionally, past that, you're going to have daily unlocks. So we currently have daily unlocks coming out, which are over here somewhere. Let's see if we can find them. So we have the daily unlocks. Okay, we have the Old London unlock. We have the Seaweed Green Dice. We have another character. We have the Docks, which is another location. That gives you 2 full locations. We have the UV Spot, which is, I guess, today's unlock. And then additionally, we have 2 packs of cards. So I believe they're both wonders. I know that the Travelers are wonders. I believe the Clockwork Freaks are wonders, which is a shame because I want more characters. I want more things, abilities, and stuff that mix up the experience, but I'll still take more wonders. The Clockwork Freaks is included in your pledge if you got to the early bird, and the Travelers is not either way. So if you got the early bird, you have the Clockwork Freaks. If you don't have the early bird, then you need to get the Clockwork Freaks. Both the Clockwork Freaks is Kickstarter exclusive. The Travelers does not specify that at all. Both of them give you a convention price, but not a, whatever else price. So for €5, will it add to the game? I mean, if for €5 for 12 cards, it may not be worth it to you if it's just more wonders. For myself, I'll be getting them because it adds to my experience overall. Additionally, you have the option of getting Sherwood Bandits for the same price as it was in the last Kickstarter, which is great because you'll be getting cheaper shipping once you combine them. So that's a nice little perk there. I guess you will have people from the original Kickstarter who are upset about that. That will usually happen. But overall, I'm totally fine with that there. As far as holding its value or not, overall, this falls into the same category as Sherwood Bandits when I talked about it last time, which is going to be, it's a good game. It's a good game with a decent price point. €35 or $43 for the game is giving you the 2 Kickstarter exclusive expansions, which are going to be unlocked through daily stretch goals. So right now we have, what do we have? We have 11 days left, I think. We have 10 days to go, and you can see over here, every day is giving you some sort of optional, some sort of unlock. So we're going to have more buildings, more characters, more things, which are ultimately come down to 2 different expansions that are being added to the game compared to getting it at retail. You'll be paying about $10, $15 more than you'll be paying at retail once you factor in if it shows up at retail, because it depends how much demand there is. But so you are paying more for the game, and I don't know if you'll be able to get that money back. Like I said, it's a good game. It's not an amazing game. It's a solid game that I think is, so again, Sherwood Bandits I didn't have the opportunity to try. This one I did. So overall, if you're interested in the game, if it appeals to you, I would say go ahead and back it. If not, pass and get the next one or try to pick up in the secondhand market. It is a solid thing, but it's not the end of the world if you miss out on this one. Moving on, we have Aeon's End, Legacy of Gravehold. So, this is a confusing one. This is a confusing one to me for a variety of reasons. First of all, disclaimer, I'm not a fan of Aeon's End in general. I have played Aeon's End multiple times trying to figure out what it is that I'm missing about this experience that people love. but I just don't enjoy it. I think it's fine. Nothing against it. I'd happily play it, but it's not one that I particularly enjoy. Past that, as far as the campaign goes itself, the part that has me confused, this is more Aeon's End content, if it wasn't clear. I believe it specifically seems to be legacy content. It's called Legacy of Gravehold. It doesn't say it's a legacy game, but it does say it says final legacy chapter, and it does give you a reset pack. So all things seem to be pointing towards legacy experience over here, in addition to the original Aeon's End Legacy, which gave you the legacy experience plus ongoing gameplay content. And so you can get just, for $79, you can just get the Aeon's End Legacy of Gravehold and the Runes expansion, or for all the way up to like $400, you can get just basically absolutely everything for Aeon's End. Aeon's End, for those who don't know, is a cooperative deck building experience in which one of the things that's unique about it is you don't shuffle your deck. As you discard things, you put them into your discard pile, and then you just flip it and start drawing again. So there's a degree of control, of precision, of trying to set up certain combos, which is interesting. Ultimately, I didn't find the experience appealing enough to be pulled in by that very interesting part of the experience. So Aeon's End Legacy, the Legacy of Gravehold is giving you, it's like the final conclusion to the chapter, which it says, it's a little confusing there. It says it's like the final conclusion. Let's see if we can find it here. It says over here, let's see. It said somewhere about the final conclusion. It might have been in the video. Or mages, I don't know. I can't remember what it was. In the final Legacy chapter, and then it also says in the FAQ that there's going to be more content for the game. So maybe it's the final Legacy game. Whatever it is, it continues the story of the Legacy, of the Aeon's End Legacy. So if you're pulled in by the story, great. If you just like the more gameplay content, there is tons more gameplay content here. Let's scroll down some of the gameplay content before we talk about the confusing part to me. So we have all this. We have, 21 envelopes full of mages and discoveries. We have the expansions there. We have 13 new Nemesis mats, 21 mage naps. That's nearly double the mages. We have over 900 cards, 36 new market cards, 60 unique mage starter cards, a world map, life dials, 28 card dividers, sticker pages, definitely a legacy game, 22 narrative booklets, 16 beach tokens, just tons and tons of content for this game. And if that's not enough, you can go ahead and then all the stretch goals and promos and all that stuff being unlocked now because it's doing fairly well. 3,000 backers, $400,000 funded, something like that. And then we get to the pledge levels, where I'm confused by. So we have $79 for the base pledge, and then for $60, you can pick any wave of content. So a wave of content there's 5 different waves of content. These are bundles you can effectively pick. So they have different tiers, each giving you access to X number of waves, and you can pick which waves you want. Now, I've priced these out. So, and even at the $60 pledge, even at the $60 increase, so from going from $79 to $139 is a $60 increase. And if you compare them to their retail availability, these pledge levels are basically between $60 to $70. Now that sounds, okay, great, well, it's a $70 pledge option. Like, for instance, let's take this one. If you look at Aeon's End Legacy plus Buried Secrets, that's $70. So great, you're paying $60 to get $70, it's a good deal, right? But you're paying $10 more in shipping. Every single one of those tiers adds an additional $10 of shipping, so it's really a $70 bump, not a $60 bump. Okay, that's number one. And the most expensive combination I could find here was $70, the rest of them were around $65. So already you're not really getting a deal. You can just get this content online and get it tomorrow instead of, well, not tomorrow, but like, next week instead of whenever. So already I'm not really seeing a deal there. Additionally, what gets confusing is the bump gets higher. 139 to 204 is a $65 bump, which means 75 because of the shipping, and all the way up to here, where from 334 to 409, you get a $75 bump. So it's going in these weird bumps over here where you just keeps adding. So it's like 60, 65, 65, 65, 65, 75. So it's almost like they're penalizing you for getting more content. The more you buy, the more you pay, and I can't figure that out. More importantly, nothing in the FAQ, and I went to the comment section, and there's not a lot of people who noticed this or asked it, but from the 5 people who did, there's not a single response from Indie Board and Cards about this, and they are being very responsive to everything else. We're seeing, again, a Terraforming Mars situation, where when people ask certain questions, they get ignored, because those questions... I'm talking too much. Those questions are just not questions that want to be answered, apparently. And I think breather talks over here. But yeah, that's what's going on over here. So very weird. Not really a deal. Honestly, my recommendation here is if you really want the game, get the Fractured Lightning Pledge, and everything else, just go online and buy it as soon as you have a chance. Now, some of these things are in between print runs, so that's a relevant factor. So if you really, really want all of it now, for some of these things will not be available. But I recommend trying to find what you can and just getting it all. I mean, again, this is $400 of Aeon's End Legacy, of Aeon's End. That's a ton of content for the game. Some of it's at a decent price, none of it's at an amazing price, which is lines up in general with the Aeon's End campaigns in the past. They always give you just enough extra that it's kind of worth it, but not with the extra content, which you can get online yourself. And that is everything Aeon's End. Moving on from there, we have Roman Roll the expansion. So So this is a hard one to talk about because I don't know enough about the base game myself. I actually have the base game. I have not had the chance to read the rules or get to the table. But Roman Roll is going to be by David Tershi, put out by SPC Games, I think it is. What is it? It is not SPC. Yeah, it's PSC Games. And this is going to be the expansion to Roman Roll, the Gladiators expansion, introducing more stuff, more asymmetric stuff. The goal of the expansion, this makes me want to play the base game. The goal of the expansion is to give you even more cool combo-y stuff based off of how the base game worked. And combo-y stuff in these kinds of games, my favorite. There's a reason Fleet the Dice Game and Ganshun Clever are amongst my favorite roll and writes because they let you do combo-tastic things, and I love that in these games. And I want to play Roman Roll because it supposedly gives you combo-tastic things to do, and this expansion is supposedly giving you more combo-tastic things to do. Combo-tastic is a great word, let's be honest. I just like that word to begin with. So that's what this expansion is giving you, more stuff to the game. You can see a playthrough of the game by Kovray. Kovray is a channel that I have not had an opportunity to shout out to. Let's see if we can find them here. Kovray is a great channel. Let me see if I can find this here. Let me see. I can't remember the names. I should remember the names. We have Kovray Studios. So that's this channel over here. I'll throw a link down below. But they basically talk, but they have a full playthrough of the game where they talk about the game and go through playing the game. But definitely check out their channel. Lots of fun to watch them in general. Past that, as far as should you back it, should you not, overall this falls into the kind of category. If you look at the original Kickstarter for the original Roman Roll base game, there are Kickstarter extras you get. In terms of being able to get your money back on those extras, not really. So overall, you'll lose on shipping. Similar to a bunch of these things we talked about today, you're going to take a little bit of a hit, not a huge hit. If you want those extras, then this might be the best opportunity to get them, because getting on the secondhand market is just going to be getting them later and paying the same price. But will you get your money back? Probably not. So similar with the Gladiators expansion, they're also giving you more of those extras, more of those miniatures. And yes, by the way, if you want to get the pledge level where you buy the base game, then you'll have access to buying the matching miniatures for the base game from the original Kickstarter in the pledge manager. But overall, the price point on the game, it comes down to, if you want it, back it, but if you're going to expect to see your money back, you'll expect to see that $10 hit or so when you try to sell it down the road. And that takes us to Tiny Turbo Cars. This is going to be by Horrible Games or Horrible Guild? Horrible Guild, different companies. Two different companies, Horrible Games and Horrible Guild. Horrible Guild brought you Dungeon Pets recently, and this continues their attempt to bring games that are fun and dexterity based and have a game behind it. Tiny Turbo Cars actually looks like amazingly fun. Now, I don't know, this is the part that has me confused, not confused, uncertain. Is it amazingly fun for 2 days, 2 plays, 2 whatever? Or is it going to be absolutely fun for a very long time? I have no real idea. But overall, Tiny Turbo Cars, what it's giving you is it's giving you a gameplay experience where you set up a board over here. Let me see if I can find a picture of the board situation. Here we go. We got a nice little board picture over here. What you're doing is you set up the board, different configurations, and then you have this little controller, which is over here somewhere. We got controller. No, it doesn't really show it to you over here. Here we go. The controller over here, where you basically have to play around with it, one of those little sliding thingies, and the 2 center rows of the controller are going to dictate what your card does. So not everything's acting, only the 2 center rows. And then from there you just move. You take abilities, you turn left, you go straight, you do all these different things, you power up, get batteries, whatever it is, as you race to the finish. It's the kind of game that is amazingly hilarious fun, potentially problematic if one player gets too good at it. This is a problem I've talked about with Galaxy Truckers, with Robo Rally. Games that have a dexterity element or an element where one player can master it, if that player gets too good at it, it stops being fun for the other players and that player as well. Past that though, it does look like a fun game, and the game's giving you 2 pledge levels plus a bunch of optional buys. It's giving you the €25, $31 pledge level, plus shipping. Shipping's not that cheap either. It's around $14, $16, something like that. And then it gives you, for €75 or $91, it's giving you a whole bunch of all the content. So let's scroll down to the pledge levels so we can see that over here. So we have the base game over here, which gives you the €25, and again, this is going to come with a guaranteed Kickstarter exclusive item, plus a bunch of other stuff that are stretch goals that aren't all marked Kickstarter exclusive, but at least you'll be getting them, versus later it'll be charged extra or whatever. And then the collector pledge gives you absolutely everything. Let's see if we can find out what absolutely everything is, and it's giving you a discount of basically $12 compared to buying those things individually. What are those things? It's going to be extra cars, extra tiles, extra meeples for that. That's going to be one. That's going to be the Adventure Crew expansion. The Space Team expansion is giving you more cars, meeples, whatever, and the 5 to 6 player expansion is making it more chaotic, which for a game that has asynchronous play is not necessarily a bad thing, because you get to do more things in the game and it doesn't really take on the downtime. It just adds to the chaos and the fun factor. Then we have the Trackboards expansion, which is going to mix up the experience. I mean, having fire across your board just sounds fun. And then we have the wooden tokens. So just a ton more content for a game, but also putting it in the price point of, and this is the same thing with I can't remember the name, which I just said this. Did I say Dungeon Pets earlier? Not Dungeon Pets. They had the game. I'm blanking on the name. Horrible Guild brought you. Let's see if we can pull this up over here. Dungeon Fighter. So, Dungeon Fighter had the same exact problem that we're seeing here, which is a potentially very high price point for what is a party game, which is great if you're interested in that. For myself, I haven't really decided what I'm doing. I actually am very interested in this one. The problem is I don't think it'll really hold its value. I think it'll take a hit on that. The accessibility or the interest point of this is a lighter style of game, which generally do have a harder time holding their value. Like many things we talked about today, expect to lose a little bit on either the shipping or a little bit past that. You'll be able to sell it. You'll be able to get a decent chunk of your money back, but you can expect to lose something along the way. But for a game that I'm interested in, I might be willing to take that plunge because it looks like it will be fun. And this over here is the Kickstarter exclusive Time Machine expansion that everyone will get at any pledge level that you back, which is giving you a card and the meeple for it. And all cards come into play with their own ability of how they are different or have an edge over other cards in the race. And from there, we move to Root the Marauders expansion. So I did a full should you back a video on this because I'm running, well, low on time already. The very short version of Root the Marauders expansion, if you don't want to check out that video, is this is an expansion to Root. It's giving you more Root content. It's giving you 2 new factions and a whole bunch of hirelings, plus different pledge levels where you can try to get other stuff as well. Hirelings are going to be an interesting, like, mini faction kind of situation where you can pledge, I can't remember what it's called, but you earn influence or whatever it is, and the influence gets utilized to be bidding on these factions or to pay for faction abilities from these miniature kind of abstracted expansions with other stuff that they can do. Seems like a fun way to add more stuff to Root, and that's in addition to the 2 new main factions. And then from there, they have different pledge levels to add even more hirelings or to add the Clockwork expansion. All in all, the price point in this one, to just save a lot of time, you can watch that full video. The price point in this one is fine, but not great. Ultimately, you can get all this stuff later for basically the same price. They are not charging you more to get the game, but they're also not giving you a discount. So factor that into your decision. If you want the game faster, get the game from the Kickstarter. If you want to support Leader Games and give them more of your dollar, get the game from the Kickstarter. If you want to potentially save a few bucks, maybe it's going to depend on your shipping costs, where you'd buy it, the taxes, all that stuff, then get the game from Leader Games. If you want to just get the game later and not put out your money for a year in terms of a game that you don't have, or if you're just very FOMO based or whatever it is, then don't worry, you don't have to get everything now, it'll all be available later. You can get the stuff at retail and not be paying much more for the game, if anything. So it's an okay back, not a bad back, not a good back either. Moving on, we have Ragnarocks. So, Ragnarocks, I did a playthrough and review with Rena that went up this Saturday. Ragnarocks is going to be from the designer of Santorini, from Gordon Hamilton, and it's going to be introducing a similar level of play. It's going to be having an abstract game when you move Vikings around the board, putting up these little towers or stones, whatever it is, that then section off areas of the board, and you get points for having larger sections or whatnot than your opponent does. But the part that's fun about the game, or I mean the game's already fun, but the part that's more fun about the game is every player takes a god power that gives them an ability that mixes up the game. If you've played Santorini, you know exactly what to expect here. It's giving you a unique ability that is somehow better for you than for your opponent, which is fun. It's great. I like that part. I like it a lot. And so the Ragnarocks is a great game. Overall, I liked it a lot. Short version, we're definitely getting it. We're getting the whole everything, because like everything in life, I like powers and abilities, and I want more powers and abilities. I love Santorini, and I'm excited to have more of not the same game, but a similar experience, to the point that I'm probably getting rid of Terra Nova. Terra Nova is a game that has similar gameplay, but without the unique abilities that mix up the experience every single time. And so that's going to be the overall game overview. Again, I have a playthrough and review with Rena where we played the game, and she won me both games, which is unfortunate, but there's always next time. As far as the game is going to be only the Kickstarter exclusive version. Only the Kickstarter version is available on Kickstarter. For the regular retail version, you'll have to wait till retail. The Kickstarter version is giving you a few extras. So why back now? To begin with, this version and price will not be available in retail. You can't get the game later. Think Santorini and the deluxe version of Santorini, although they kind of put out some of the Kickstarter stuff later for that situation. But again, this version of the game will not be available in retail, and there are more cards that will be available in the Kickstarter version that will not be available in retail, Kickstarter exclusive. For over here, we have the plastic tree insert. We have the exclusive runestones that are going to be different than the retail ones, which are going to be totally gray. These are gray based and a glowy effect on top. And we have extra myth cards that will be available here. As far as the price point, it's coming in at $45. Now, this may well see the same trajectory we saw for Santorini. Now, keep in mind, this is speculation. I do not know what will play out of here. But what I'm seeing, having played this game, I'm seeing a game that has the same appeal of Santorini. Different game, to be clear. I imagine Santorini to be more popular, but I'm not certain, meaning I'm projecting my bias of Santorini being a game that has lasted for years and still is sold and liked, versus most games aren't. So I might be just projecting my bias on what happened to Santorini as opposed to what could happen. But overall, Santorini is a great game that has lasted, and it went from being a really expensive Rocket League Kickstarter game that was incredibly exclusive and hard to get and held its value, to being a game you could buy online at any Target for $20 when they produced the cheaper version of the game. So it's hard to say what will happen here. If this follows the same trajectory, then this will be the most expensive version of the game that you will buy, but it will also have more stuff. As far as the original Santorini, it did hold its value initially as the price of the game dropped, as it became more and more frequently and easily available. Even the Kickstarter version of the game did not hold its value either over time. So I would say Ragnarocks, you're likely to see a similar trajectory. Initially, it'll hold its value because it's a good game, it's fun, people will like it, people will want it, and it's the only Kickstarter exclusive version. Over time, when a retail version pops out, your Kickstarter version will have more stuff and it'll be awesome, but it may not hold its value long term, depending on the price point of whatever comes later. But again, overall, I recommend backing the game, especially if you want this. If you want the God Powers, you'll have more God Powers this way. Alternatively, you can really wait a long time and pick it up cheaper on the secondhand market, depending on how things go. Bit of a risk either way. Fun fact, not fun fact. Additionally, I want to touch upon one thing, because in my playthrough and review, I got a lot of comments from people about Grey Fox games. Now, I've talked about Grey Fox games in the past, and I'll do so now, but I do want to show the disclaimer that I am currently friends with Lance Mixter, who's like the main point person of Grey Fox games. And so, in the past, I have been critical about some of their issues, including Reavers of Midgard. They had a lot of production issues, and they're now having similar production issues with Tsukami Full Moon, which you can't read because it's over a white thing over there. So they're having a bunch of production issues on both these games, or they have had on those two games. They have not had production issues across the board. They have had different games, which some have had issues, some have not. Now, if people are losing their minds about Tsukami, or a lot of people are losing their minds, like it's really, some of the comments are really abusive. It's actually a real problem. But if you look at Reavers of Midgard, the last time I talked about this, Reavers of Midgard had recently had issues, which they have seemingly resolved. They have given people like updates or, new inserts, new stuff to replace the issues they had with Reavers of Midgard. In other words, yes, they had issues, and yes, they paid through the nose to support and take care of those issues. That's my seeming impression. Again, disclaimer that I'm friends with Lance, so if you think that's biasing my opinion, by all means. But practically speaking, it looks like they resolved the issues of Reavers of Midgard. Similarly, on Tsukami, if you pay attention to the most update, they're saying the exact same thing. They're saying, yes, send us your email, we'll take care of you. Lance gives his direct email in this update. You can, whatever issues you have, whatever complaints you have, we will take care of you. It might take time. We know it's frustrating. We'll take care of you. And that's true. If you want to be frustrated, not if you want to. You have every reason to be frustrated by something and when there's an issue that you now have to wait for it to be resolved. But it seems like they will take care of you. You might have to jump through some hoops, you might have to wait a bit, but it seems Grey Fox Games will take care of you. Factor that into your decision here, because I know I saw some comments on my playthrough of, well, this game is a great game, but it's, it's Grey Fox Games is putting it out, so I'm not backing anything. I'm not getting it. Okay, that's reasonable. It's reasonable you don't want to go down that road. I'm not trying to convince you otherwise. But I would say to anyone who has a problem with anything going on with Grey Fox Games, at least understand there's always a person behind the other side of the screen. I mean, scroll through some of the comments on Tsukami. I don't want to do it myself because I don't want to poke fingers at people, but scroll through some of the comments. They border on straight up abuse to sheer toxicity over a game. I understand it's a problem. I understand it's disappointing. Understand there's always a person on the other side of everything. There's a person on the other side of the customer service line. There's a person responding to your email where you're freaking out. Every person who leaves an angry comment on a YouTube video about anything, there's a person on the other side. Always understand there's a person. I mean, yeah, it's whatever. It's a thing. Moving on from there, we go to the last game that we're talking about today, which is going to be Batman: The Dark Knight Returns, coming out from the company Cryptosaic Entertainment, which is an interesting thing here because Batman: The Dark Knight Returns is going to be a solo experience designed by Daryl Andrews and I believe someone else. I apologize, I should know. It's designed by Daryl Andrews and Morgan Donteville. And overall, I don't know anything about Morgan, nothing personal, but Daryl Andrews is a solid designer. He comes from Sagrada, done a whole bunch of other games. One of my favorite games way back in the day was Walled City Borderlands from Daryl Andrews. Actually not that highly rated, but I really loved it a while ago. And he continues to put out a whole bunch of stuff. So Daryl Andrews is a solid designer with a solid name behind him. Morgan, I don't know anything about your stuff offhand. I apologize in advance. But overall, it's, Daryl Andrews. That's what I'm coming down to. But it's also Cryptosaic. Cryptosaic has historically put out a lot of games that have not held their value. Like, they have the whole Ghostbusters Kickstarter. Their Kickstarters in general have not held their value. Look at their track record of everything they've put out. None of them have actually, been worth it after the fact. Some of these are new, so they're not out yet. Steven Rhodes is not out yet. Steven Universe is not out yet. But Cult, Walking Dead, No Sanctuaries, Ghostbusters, this is a list of games that have not held their value when they actually arrived in people's doors. Are they bad games? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying they haven't held their value. Batman The Dark Knight Returns, though, does seem like it's a more premium product, coming to you with an IP that is, well, sought after. It's coming to you from Daryl Andrews, and so it's designing a solo game that it's a pure solo experience, although I believe they have coming a 1 versus 1 mode of playing the game. But other than that, it's primarily a solo-driven experience where it's all about survival. It's all about attrition. It's not about winning. It's about making your way to the end without losing, which already for me personally means I'm just not interested in. That style of game is not what I come to the table for. I like to feel powerful and do things. I don't like surviving in games. So it's not a game for me. But that's immaterial. That's immaterial to the conversation at hand. This isn't a video series about games that are for me or not. But overall, the game, the pledge levels. So what do you have over here? For $60, you have the base game box. Don't get that. Just wait till retail. Do not get it here. Wait for retail. They have not listed the retail pricing that I've seen, so it could be a little bit more expensive in retail, but historically speaking, these retail options are rarely, if ever, a good back. And then for $99, we have the Deluxe Edition, which is going to be the base game box, including the miniatures and the Deluxe Kickstarter exclusive premium slipcase. Now, I'll note here, the slipcase, let me see if I can find the pledge levels here. The Deluxe Edition over here. So you have these two options and then the slipcase. The slipcase is Kickstarter exclusive. The miniatures, the deluxe game box over there, does not say that it's Kickstarter exclusive. So far, the only thing on this pledge level that is exclusive is going to be that slipcase. On the other hand, if they do unlock more stretch goals, because they do have stretch goals coming up, if they do unlock stretch goals, many of these stretch goals are going to be Kickstarter exclusive. So factor that in over there. You may get Kickstarter exclusive stretch goals. These are all coming in the deluxe options. You can see this is in the deluxe option, this is in the base option, this is in the deluxe option, this is in the base option. So it does seem even some of the base options over here will come with some Kickstarter exclusive stretch goals as the campaign progresses. So that could slightly change the value of the base pledge. But overall, my recommendation would be, if you're interested in this game, either wait till retail and pick it up. It'll be available. You might miss out on some of the stuff. Or alternatively, get the deluxe edition and hope that it's a good enough game or holds its value. The price point is not terrible. You're getting 17 plus miniatures, which isn't great for $100, but it's primarily not a miniatures game. It's a board game, a solo game that's a puzzle, an experience, and a this and that with a strong IP behind it. And then also 17 miniatures. I mean, this is going to be based on the Batman Return, the Dark Knight Returns from Frank Miller, the whole storyline of Batman coming out of retirement. So you can have all different situations here with, like, you know, Batman is aging, and there's a new Robin, and there's Commissioner Gordon, and Green Arrow's missing an arm and shooting bows and arrows with his teeth, and Two-Face is still around, and we have Superman's working for the government now. So it's going to be all these, it's a whole different storyline. If you're interested in the standard Batman storyline, and just understand what you're getting into before you back this game. Overall, like I said, the value conversation is a little hard in this one. It's just hard to know where this will play out without enough context. It's on the one hand, it's cryptosaic. On the other hand, it's coming to the table with solid designers behind the game, which might, and plus an IP that is better IP, a more marketable, resellable IP than Ghostbusters behind it. So overall, I would classify this one as a risk. I'm not saying it's a bad value. I'm just not confident it will hold its value. You can expect to see something back, almost certainly. But how much will you lose or not lose? It's hard to know for sure. And then lastly, we have Tiny Epic Dungeons, which I'm not talking about today, but I will have a dedicated video on should you back it for Tiny Epic Dungeons, likely coming up later this week at some point. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and as always, have a good one. So last week, I made the mistake of looking down at my phone or whatever, and someone recorded me looking like I was sleeping on the camera and then put on an infinite loop. So if you search for Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. sleeping, there's now like a 20-minute video of a loop that makes it look like I'm sleeping. So enjoy that. You're welcome. The internets are a fun thing. Past that, so I mentioned kind of at the beginning we're going to talk about this. For those of you who remember, yeah, we're going to talk about it. So Bloodstone. I debated talking about it at the beginning. I just figured I wanted something for my after credit scene, so it's always something. But Bloodstone canceling. So overall, the very short version of Bloodstone canceling is that it canceled. It's going to be coming back in the summer at some point. No specified date. And speaking frankly, I think I was very happy when I saw the cancellation notice. Now, I wasn't happy about everything that led to that moment in time. I wasn't happy that it wasn't doing well. But with the fact that it wasn't doing well, I was happy to see it canceled, knowing that it's going to come back stronger. So what does that mean? So, first of all, James, if you're watching this, this is incredibly supportive. It's I'm very for this. I've briefly talked to you already about this, but it's a supportive thing. Bloodstone is a game that clearly had a certain approach to the way they handled the Kickstarter that sadly did not work. And that approach is, they had a very, very narrative lore-based approach, and they talked about daily reveals, and they weren't going to have stretch goals, which is fine. You don't need stretch goals to have a good campaign anymore. But I think you also need to understand backers' expectations and mindsets. Most of the time, backers are coming to the table expecting stretch goals. So you have to be very clear from day one, there will not be stretch goals. There's going to be only daily reveals. But then the next problem we have is that daily reveals usually mean gameplay content or deluxeification of stuff. It doesn't mean narrative things. Which means, and this is a problem that we saw way back with Dead Reckoning, with AEG Dead Reckoning, that they said we're going to have daily reveals, and that they posted things like, today's daily reveal is a video chat with the designers. And people were like, what are you doing? That's not a daily reveal. Meaning it's not necessarily always about the content. Sometimes it's about the expectation that's set. So when you see Bloodstone, and you see a 25-day campaign with daily reveals, many people are walking in the door saying, okay, I get it. It's pricey. That's fine. I'm totally fine with that because it's, it's Druid City Games. It's Skybound Entertainment. They're going to release amazing stuff. And we have 25 days of extras coming our way. And then 5-6 days go past and you have like story after story after story, which is great for those that want that. But I think a majority of people were not looking for that. I think. I'm projecting my own bias, by the way. So that's factor that in. But I think there was a lot of disappointment around the lack of what the daily reveals meant for the deluxeification or additions to the game that was coming in at a high price point. Now, to be clear, I was backing Bloodstone. I've played the game. I know it's good. I want it in my collection. I think it's going to stick around for a while. But I understand that it's a pretty expensive price point for what you're getting component-wise compared to other games, and that makes other people choose differently where to put their limited budget. So overall, I don't know what changes are coming with Bloodstone. To anyone who's like, oh no, a $300,000 project they've canceled, I mean, you can be upset. You're welcome to be upset about anything you want, but I think the game deserves more. I think the game can be better. Whether that's a cheaper price point, whether that's more content for the game, either way, I'm happy about what happens next. I didn't wish it to cancel, but with the trajectory of where the campaign was going and the overall frustration and tone from backers, and for what it's worth, by the way, most backers were incredibly respectful with their feedback. If I'm going to give people a hard time and sue on me, whatever it is, for being not ideal in the way they communicate to others, I'll give people props for the fact that the Bloodstone campaign was one of the most polite and communicative experiences I've had, both from Skybound themselves. They handled the campaign incredibly well. They were incredibly communicative. Sorry, not incredibly well. That's a tough one. They were incredibly communicative to their backers, responding to basically everything. And then the backers, in turn, were incredibly polite in the way they expressed their disappointment. Now, it's possible I missed some people being offensive, but for the most part, they were very, very polite, saying, hey, I'm canceling my pledge because of this, this, and this, but I'm trying to be constructive with my feedback. Or I'm keeping my pledge, but I'm also disappointed because of X, Y, and Z. I like when people just treat each other well and talk to each other like there's an actual human being on the other side of the screen. Don't ever say something on the internet that you wouldn't say to someone's face, or at least try not to, because it's not nice. But yeah, that's overall Bloodstone. I'm excited to see what happens next. I'm sad that the campaign is canceled, but it is coming back, so I'm happy that it's coming back better. So that's the dichotomy there. And ultimately, I'm supporting Druid City or Skybound or Hudson and whatever happens next. This is an amazing game that I was thrilled to be a part of, and I'm sad that it didn't seem to deliver as much as it could have in terms of imparting that to others in whatever way, shape, or form. So that's my thing with that. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Have a good one, and I'll see you tomorrow.